welcome back to Luke Deckard Show. I'm your host, Luke Deckard. So tonight we got a pretty fun show lined up. Tonight, it's a retrospective of the Scream movies, at least a lot of 1 and 2 and 3. Not really going beyond that, but I have a guest with me today, Heather Fitt. She's author of several crime books, Open Your Eyes, The Flight, and The Boat Trip. This is a series that she is very, very fond of, and it was very entertaining to watch these movies for the very first time, and I'm excited to discuss it. So, without further ado, let's bring Heather in. Hello, Heather.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it was my pleasure. It was my pleasure. So, we were talking a little bit before we got started about your history with the horror genre. So let's dive into that first before we start talking about Scream. So as I was saying, I'm not a massive horror fan. I think I like certain horror movies that are probably like really staple, things like Psycho, I don't know, Jaws. Jaws is a horror movie. Things like Exorcist, I guess I like. I'm not a massive horror fan, so my knowledge of the horror genre is very minimum, and I didn't really grow up spending a lot of time engaging with horror. But what's your experience with the horror genre?
So I think Scream was probably the first horror film I ever really watched, actually.
Right.
I was only 14 when the first horror film came out. The first Scream film came out, sorry. Wow. So I think from there, I kind of got into it a whole lot more. There was 90s was a complete slasher fest. There was so many good and bad slasher films all the way through the 90s. But yeah, I really got into the slasher genre literally through Scream. And then, of course, as I'm sure we will talk about later, there are so many references to other great horror films throughout this trilogy that I went back and watched some of those. And then I studied media and film at university. So I did a lot of stuff around horror films at university as well.
Oh, cool.
It was. But Scream is the reason I started watching horror films.
Oh, I love that. So when you were okay, so Scream was your gateway drug into the horror genre. What outside of Scream, what were some of your other what are your say top 3, top 5?
So I love Halloween. I'm a massive fan of Halloween.
Okay,
also, there's a film called Ripper, which is virtually unknown.
Yep.
And it's completely based around Jack the Ripper and his victims.
Okay.
In a modern setting. It's a proper 90s slasher film. And I actually wrote my dissertation at university on it.
Awesome. Awesome.
But then I've also, Scream's up there as well, obviously. But then I had, I wouldn't say the pleasure, let's call it the privilege of seeing the original uncut version of Last House on the Left.
Okay.
Which is also a Wes Craven film, and also films like I Spit on Your Grave, which were all part of the video nasties. Some of them are still banned. In fact, I Spit on Your Grave and the original Last House on the Left are still banned in this country.
Wow.
But yeah, basically the gorier the better for me. I'm one of those. So apparently, when it comes to horror fans, fewer than 5% of horror fans are female slasher film fans, and I'm one of them. Wow. Yeah, it's a really small amount.
That is. Yeah, it's nuts. Like thinking about it, I think it was not last Halloween, maybe the Halloween before. I can't remember, but obviously I know icons like Jason and Freddy Krueger and Chucky, and I like that though. I like Child's Play. That's probably one of my favorites of this genre. But just to emphasize my ignorance with this genre, I didn't realize we watched I think it was this last Halloween. I'm pretty sure it was. We watched Friday the 13th for the first time, and we got near the end of the movie. And I was like, "Where's Jason?" And then I Googled it. I was like, "He's not in this movie."
Not in that one. Spoiler alert! In case anybody's not seen that one.
I mean, by now, like you kind of, it's on you to know or not know. I think
Yeah,
it didn't bother me. Spoilers galore for the horror genre.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So I just remembered with you mentioning Chucky.
Yes.
When I used to stay at my nana's house, I would sleep on the floor of two of my auntie's bedroom.
Right.
We put Chucky on one night. Now I must have been about 10 or 11, and I was terrified.
Yes.
I had to get up to go to the toilet, and all they did was from their beds go, "Chucky's coming."
Oh, those bastards.
I couldn't move. They were in a lot of trouble when my parents found out the next day. But yes, I just remember I've obviously like pushed it from my mind, tried to completely get it out of my head so it doesn't terrify me anymore.
Oh, I love it. What about The Shining? I do like The Shining, but I also like Doctor Sleep. Did you?
I haven't seen Doctor Sleep.
It's good. It's surprisingly good.
Okay, you definitely sound surprised by it.
Well, I was, because I think it's a sequel to The Shining, and I was like, do we need that? Is that and I went in kind of reluctant, but I was like, I really enjoyed that.
Okay, I'll definitely have to check out. Yes, I've seen The Shining. For some reason, I don't actually find that as scary as I used to, even if I haven't watched it for a long time.
True. Yeah.
I don't know why, because the first time I watched it, yes, I was terrified, and getting up to go to the toilet involved putting every light on the way and turning them all off on the way back. But yeah, it's a great film. And I do enjoy watching it, but I don't find it scary anymore.
No. We got a few people in the chat. So Biffer the Hobbit says, hello Biffer. Casey says, you're pulling at my national heartstrings with all these Scots guests. So I had Jonathan Whitelaw on the other day. We were talking about Indiana Jones, and then we got yourself. And deep down, I wish I were Scottish. But I'm not. It's not even. I don't even think it's in. We did the 23andMe, and there is English. I don't think there was any Scottish. I was like, damn it. Yeah. Oh, and yeah, Biffer the Hobbit says, yeah, Dr. Sleep was great. I agree. Shane Ford says Dr. Sleep is underrated. Saw it 3 times in the theaters. I took the plunge. I didn't see it in the cinema. For some reason, I can't remember. Someone told me to watch it, so I thought, okay, I'll give it a go. But the only way I could watch it was to purchase it. So I was like, well, I'm just going to go for it. And I purchased the director's cut. I thought, I'm just going to go all out, get the director's cut. It's like 3 hours long. Don't care. And like, if that wins me over, then that's a good job. And it did. And it did. So let's get to the meat and potatoes of tonight.
Okay.
Let's talk Scream. So this was your first horror film, the thing that got you addicted. Should we just start with let's start with one, and kind of talk our way through it, and we'll see how far we get. We'll try and get through everything, but we'll see how far we get.
Sure.
So this, like I said, this was my first experience watching these movies, and I didn't really know what to expect. I didn't know. I went in totally ignorant. I didn't read up on anything. I just went in. So I didn't know that it was like quite meta and self-referential and all that sort of stuff. And yeah, this opening with Halle Berry. Let's talk about that. What was your initial, if you can remember, like what was your initial thought on that whole sequence?
So it's not Halle Berry. It is
not Halle Berry. It's Drew Barrymore. What the hell am I thinking?
My brain went blank for a minute then. I knew it wasn't Halle Berry.
I knew there was a Berry in there somewhere.
So yeah, that sequence. So Scream was basically one of the first 90s slasher films.
Yeah.
So everything that we kind of got there from that first film was new to a whole new generation. It wasn't new to everybody, obviously, but to that generation, it was new.
Yeah.
So the whole I'm calling from inside the house thing was just like, I can remember freezing and the hairs on my arms prickling and thinking, Jesus Christ, what is she going to do? And there's this popcorn constantly popping away in the background. And you're like, she's just forgotten about the popcorn. And it was, I thought the tension build up in it was great, actually. And I'm thinking back to when I first saw it, because obviously you see it so many times. And yeah, there are still a few frights that, you've forgotten about. But but it was unapologetically gory.
It was.
You know, there was she was stabbed several times,
Yes.
and they didn't shy away from showing it either.
No, not at all. Not at all. Yeah, Shane Ford mentions, and I did read this, that the opening was lifted from When a Stranger Calls. I've not seen that movie, but yeah, I agree with you. I was uncertain going in with this movie, because it was quite cheesy and quite seedy. The phone call is very seedy, and I wasn't. I just didn't know what to expect. But as the phone call kept going on and kept hanging up and calling back, and he started saying weirder things, I agree that I actually really love the opening of Scream. It's mild spoiler. It's probably my favorite thing of everything that I watched of Scream.
Yeah, no, that's
I really liked it. I think I absolutely agree. The way the tension is built, and he's like, I thought you said you didn't have a boyfriend, and turn the light on, and then the boyfriend's out there all taped up and like about to die. I liked how that all played out. And then when he's in the house, and then when she's like on the phone and like her parents are right there, but she can't speak. I was like, that was good. That I really enjoyed. I don't know if enjoy is the right word, but I was entertained. That's probably not the right word either. I appreciated the horror.
So Drew Barrymore was actually supposed to play Sydney.
Interesting.
Yeah. So this is one of these weird little movie fact things,
Yes.
movie trivia things. She was supposed to play Sydney, but what she wanted to do was so basically, when you see a famous face in one of these types of films, they're going to survive, right? They might come close to it, but they're going to survive by the end. Well, Drew Barrymore was like, "Nah, I'm going to play Casey, and I'm going to shock everyone." A la Psycho.
I was going to say, yeah, just like Psycho.
Is killed very early on in Psycho, and she deliberately chose to play Casey for that reason.
I like that. I was happy that it was a nice subversion of my expectations. It's like, oh, okay, she's dead. That's kind of fun. The gag sort of continues in the franchise, and I'm not sure if it plays as well in the second movie, but we'll get there. We'll get there. Then the next bit is we get to Sydney and Billy Loomis, which is clearly a reference to The Exorcist, isn't it? It's Dr.
So Dr. Loomis is from Halloween.
Why do I keep getting that's
but
it.
But before that, Psycho. So I've got it written down. Sam Loomis, Marion's boyfriend in Psycho. So the name continues.
There we go. Just a few comments in the chat. Frank, I want my TV now. Ghostface can be anyone. We'll get there, buddy. We'll get there. What else? Alice. Oops, that's the thing jumped up. Allison Valentine. It was when the phone started ringing that got me. After watching the movie, every time the phone rang, it used to freak me out. You know what? That was. I do sort of wonder how that plays with younger audiences, like audiences today, because it's like there's no caller ID. Like it's like I remember that era very well of calling and prank calling and not knowing who's who and what's going on. And I loved that bit of. It's obviously not nostalgia in the movie, but it felt very nostalgic to me to go back to that point in the 80s where it was just like they're cell phones, but like they don't really understand how cell phones work, how a cell bill works or anything. It's just it's hilarious to me.
Very quickly before you go on to that scene, going back to Casey's scene, when Casey's parents arrive home and her dad sends her mum down the street to the Mackenzies.
Yes.
Also from Halloween.
That's right.
Because Laurie sends the kid she's babysitting down the road to the Mackenzies as well. It's dual reference.
Yes. So then we kind of get to the next bit that is Sydney and Billy talking in her bedroom. It's that kind of quintessential, I think, scene that you need in a horror movie. That's the sexual tension scene of, are they going to do it? Are they not going to do it? And it felt very 80s, but also very 90s kind of pressure, not pressure. I don't know. What did you think about that scene?
It's interesting because it's one of the rules of horror movie.
Yeah.
The leading lady is supposed to be a virgin.
Yeah.
That's how she survives. I don't know why. I don't make the rules, but that is one of the rules. And Randy tells us that the whole time.
Yes, he does.
So it's interesting to wonder if Billy's thoughts were, well, there's no way she can survive if she's not a virgin, or if it was just that he wanted to get his leg over. I mean, who knows, right? He was psycho. But also him crawling through her window goes back to A Nightmare on Elm Street. When I've forgotten his name now. Who was in Pirates of the Caribbean?
Johnny Depp, yes.
Johnny Depp crawls through the window in Nightmare on Elm Street as well.
Yes. And obviously this guy looks like Johnny Depp.
Exactly.
A little bit.
I think that's probably part of it.
Yeah, it had to have been. I suppose it's interesting. It's like, I don't want to spoil the film too much. I don't want to do too much. Obviously, we will spoil it, but I don't want to jump ahead too much. But I did sort of wonder and sort of retrospect. I was like, well, I guess I was sort of wondering why. Like, why was he? What was the end game of pressuring her into having sex?
Yeah, that's a good point, actually.
If he wanted to kill, I also was kind of like, why did you want to kill her? Because I guess we can kind of spoil it we can kind of jump around with this movie, because
I think so. I think it all relates. So I think, you know.
Yeah. So
and you're like 20 years late. So, you know.
Yeah, like yeah. So it's interesting that I messaged my friend Phil, who's in the chat. I messaged him while I was watching it, and I said, "Is the police chief, the killer?" And he was like, "No." And I was like, "That doesn't make sense." And he's like, "Why?" And I was like, "Because the voice machine sounds exactly like the police chief." And they also had the scene with the police chief escorting what's the mother's murderer's name? It's totally Cotton. Yeah, escorting Cotton out of from the courthouse, I think, to go to jail. And I was like, oh, he must be the killer. This guy's going to be the connection. They're being vague about it, because his voice really, really, really does sound like the voice machine that they use.
I had never noticed that before.
Go back and watch one scene of the voice machine and one scene of him, and I was like, because I have this weird thing where I pick up voices really well. Like if someone's like in a animated movie or something like that, I'm like, oh, that's this person. I can, whatever. Right. Like the other day I was watching, for whatever reason, I was watching the 1990 Spider-Man cartoon, and Mary Jane Watson, Peter Parker's girlfriend, has an aunt, and I was like, that's Majel Barrett, which is Gene Roddenberry's wife, who plays Deanna Troy's mom in Next Generation and stuff. And yeah, I was like, I know these voices. And yeah, anyway, that's so I really, really thought it was. And he was like, nope, that's not it. And he's like, he only gave me the kid who's really, really schizo. Am I allowed to say that? I don't know. What's the kid's name? The guy who played Shaggy. Stu. Yes.
No, so that's my husband's name.
Hope he's not the same.
No, very different.
Yeah. So he showed me Stu's picture, and I was like, oh, it's Stu. Oh, okay, we'll see how this plays out. So I didn't know the twist. It was going to be Stu and Billy. And when that came about, it raised so many questions. Because I was
did you go back and try and figure out who killed which one?
That I didn't.
Because it made me think, so there's two killers.
Yes.
So where was Billy when this killing happened, and where was Stu? And did we see them just before or just after?
Yeah.
And were they, if we saw Billy just before, was he then dressed up as Ghostface, or was it Stu dressed up as Ghostface and Billy ran away? I don't think anybody's ever worked that out. And I'm not even sure that you could, because I think it could be either.
I'm not sure Wes Craven knows.
No, it would be a bit like trying to put Pulp Fiction in the correct order.
Yes, pretty much. James Benmore in the chat says that nice use of Nick Cave's red right hand in this film. kind of. There were moments where I thought it was good, but then there were some moments where, in general, the music was really bloody weird because it's like and I don't know if this was intentional, but there's like just a lot of like 90s like pop throughout, and I'm like, it jars because it's like it's not like it doesn't quite mesh so well. Like sometimes when they use like a bit of rock music, like, that works for this, but like the end credits have like a really sappy pop song, and I'm like, what is going on? Who picked the music for this film? But I like Red Right Hand. I just can't not hear it and think of Peaky Blinders anymore, though.
Yeah, that's it, isn't it?
that they've hijacked it. They totally hijacked
Definitely.
it. Let's see. Any other comments in the chat? If there's anything worth addressing? Yes, no, Frank. I didn't know that there were two killers. Sorry. Sorry. Yeah, so I guess that was a weird thing was the two killers and their motive. What do you buy the motive? Because the motive kind of goes all over the place. At one minute they're like, it's chaos, we're just killing anyone we want. And you're like, well, that makes sense. And then the guy's like, no, actually I have a motive. It's because your mom screwed my dad and ruined my family. And I was like, well, then you have motive and it's not chaos. And then why did you kill all these other? What was your motive for killing everybody else?
Yeah, exactly. Just none of it really made sense. When you look at it that closely, it's just like, hang on a minute, we need to have some kind of motive because nobody's going to believe there was no motive. Not both killers. I can get away with one killer not having a motive, I think.
Yeah.
And clearly Stu was, he had a break in his brain somewhere during that movie, I think.
Yes.
So you can kind of give him that. But then Billy kind of seemed more rational almost.
Yes.
Which is slightly scarier. But like you say, why kill everybody else as well?
Yes.
If it was just that he was pissed off with Sydney's mum for sleeping with his dad and splitting up his family, then why kill everybody else too? Or was that just a Stu thing? Yeah. Or was it just a bit of fun for everybody and they're both complete psychopaths and it just turned out that they were both in the same school at the same time?
Yeah, because the thing is, like, the person he would want to kill would be her mom.
Yeah, but she's already
dead. So it was like, and they killed her. So I'm kind of like, I don't understand why the revenge it keeps escalating to not just the mom, but then the daughter, but like not I guess no, they do capture the dad.
Yeah,
but I'm just
kill the dad. He has as much to do with the affair as Sydney does.
Exactly. Like it was very odd. That bit was odd to me. I don't know if that was as well thought out as possible. Because the thing is, like, what always gets me, and this has always been my problem when I watch things or read things, is I'm a stickler for plot and making sure everything makes sense and lines up. And I'm aware that in a movie like this, no one cared.
Yeah, nobody cares about that.
So when I'm watching and I'm seeing this stuff, I'm like, wait a minute, no, this doesn't make sense. Make your story make sense. But that's not what people are watching. Because like one thing that was bizarre as heck to me was like the next morning, it's literally the next morning, and the school is overrun with reporters.
Yeah,
and I'm like, why?
Did you clock one of the reporters?
Yeah. Oh, it's Linda Blair, isn't it? Yeah. Yes. And then there's a comment about there's a reference, like a spoken reference about the Linda Blair, I think, as well. I think Billy
later.
Yeah. So that was bizarre to me. So okay, so when all the friends are sitting together, chatting outside the school, at that point did you suspect any of them would be the killer?
I think I suspected Billy a little bit, but only because of his whole cool, like slightly dour, withdrawn demeanor. He didn't really smile. He didn't really. He was always so intense. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I figured that maybe it was him, but then jumping ahead, there's that bit that makes you think it's not him.
Yeah.
Towards the end.
Yes.
If we're not spoiling for a minute. So yeah, I mean, I think I went through everybody
Yeah.
wondering if it was them. And bear in mind, this is the first horror film I've ever watched, so I wasn't 100% certain of the formula then. I think
Yeah.
now if you give me a new slasher film to watch,
Yeah.
I could probably have a decent idea at working it out.
Right.
But back then, this was brand new. I think I was probably 15 when I actually watched it. It was an 18 horror, but we all
Yes.
did that back then.
Yeah.
So it really was the first time I'd ever watched anything like that, and I had no idea that there were even rules to it until I watched the film. And then, of
Yes.
course, you start watching all the other ones.
Yes.
But yeah, no, I went through everybody trying to figure out if it was them.
Yeah.
And then every time I thought it was somebody, they got killed, apart from Billy. But by then, I just didn't think it was him. I know
No,
as I say,
same. I didn't think it was him either. Even when Stu, was outed as the killer, I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense. I guess it makes sense, but because he's nuts the entire time. But Allison in the chat says, I don't think the screenwriter thought that people would look too deeply into this movie.
I don't think people had as much of an opportunity to look so deeply into it, because in 1996, not everybody had the internet.
Nope.
IMDb was in its infancy.
Yeah.
We didn't have blogs where people were looking for film references and talking about all this. I think we had chat rooms, didn't we? We had sort of basic chat rooms.
Yeah.
But nowhere that you could go and sort of research all this stuff. So yeah, you're right, Alison. I don't think anybody thought that we would look so closely into it. Certainly not 25 years later.
Yes. Okay, so then you get your first big attack, where Sydney is called and the Ghostface gets in her house and is trying to kill her. Because Drew Barrymore died, I was like, are they going to kill this one too? Did you expect her to die or not to die?
No,
because I had no idea at that point. I was like, "There's a wild card. This film."
Yeah, anything could happen. No, I didn't expect her to die, but what I did love about it is she went outside. She was scared, but she didn't run away.
Yeah,
she did all that stuff that you think if it's a prank, then I'm gonna do it. Except at the time, you'd probably be terrified, but she did it anyway, and I really liked that.
Yeah.
They didn't have her hiding in a cupboard or a locked toilet or whatever.
Yeah.
She went outside and called him out.
Yeah. I did like
but
that.
She left her front door open.
She what?
She left her front door open. Big mistake. You
exactly.
Don't do that.
Never leave the door open. What are you thinking? Oh, let's go back one bit though. Back to the friends. Randy. Let's talk about Randy for a second. Because Randy is where the film goes into kind of commentary overdrive a little bit. He's so self-aware of the horror genre, and he's so self-aware of applying horror genre rules to these murders, which in a real life situation is just
you wouldn't
do that by any at all. And I sort of wondered, and I kind of like Randy, but I sort of wondered, was the film like too trying to be too meta, or trying to be maybe smarter than what it really is?
I think from what I've read and what I researched at the time, or when I was at university anyway, it was originally supposed to be a bit of a comedy. Like there was supposed to be comedy elements to it, which is why there are so many references to other horror films in there. And it was actually originally called Scary Movie. Seriously.
There we go.
It was called Scary Movie, and the actual Scary Movie came out a year after Scream. In fact, I think they were both written by Kevin Williamson.
Okay.
I could be wrong on that. Someone will correct me, I'm sure, if I am. I forgot where I was going now.
Well, you were saying it was meant to be a comedy, and we're talking about...
It was meant to be a comedy, so the references to the films were supposed to be for horror film fans to go, I get that, and yeah, that's quite funny because it references that and all the rest of it. And then they just kind of changed it just enough to make it tense, but with a bit of dark humor rather than comedy.
So that's interesting. That bit I didn't know, because as I was watching it, I sort of wrote down the character names and what I felt about them. And like Sydney is acting as if she's in a real horror movie. She's acting as if she's in Friday the 13th or Chucky. She's, and to some degree Billy is as well, because he's, as you said, he is quite serious. Stu is a nutcase.
Just really.
Yeah, and I'm like, he's so over the top that I'm like, are you meant to be like he would fit like in a Seth Rogen stoner comedy kind of situation. Randy, again, I was like, you're too self-aware, and you feel like you should be in Scary Movie, like a comedy like that. So that's interesting. I didn't realize that. Gale Weathers, which funny name because it's Gale Weathers.
Yeah.
It's not with an I. I like that. But I also felt like this is kind of different to that. But I was like, she was basically just acting like Monica, and it annoyed me.
Yeah, Monica a little bit further, a bit of more of a bitchy Monica. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. So I was, she was not doing anything. She's great as Monica. I think that's about it. But then and then Dewey, he was acting like he should be in like a Scooby Doo. Yeah. Like children's comedy, horror, like a scary ghost comedy for kids. And it, now that you mention that, it makes me wonder, like, how much did the actors or the director or how much do they actually know what they were doing and what kind of film they were meant to be in? Because kind of like with the music is a little bit uneven, and I'm like, is this meant to be kind of serious? But then you have Dewey acting like he's an adult child, and he's also in the police. I don't really understand why. And then you got Stu, who's just absolutely insane, and so it was also kind of hard for me to like. And Randy's speaking as if we're in the real world, talking about real world. So it wasn't like it was meta, but not meta enough. The balance for me was really difficult, and I think that's why I struggled with Scream, because I couldn't just go with it, because I was asking too many questions.
Yeah,
too many questions.
It's almost as if it was made for horror film fans, like purely for horror film fans.
Yes.
People in the know, people who had a little bit of knowledge to sit there and have a little bit of an in-joke, as it were.
Yeah.
I'm just looking at James's comment there.
Oh yeah.
Supposed to be funny.
Yeah, James says it was supposed to be funny. When it was in the cinema, it got loads of laughs. So I guess some of those meta jokes paid off for those who saw it in the cinema.
Yeah, I don't think it was supposed to be an out and out horror, which is why I think originally it was called Scary Movie.
Yeah.
I think it just sort of became that way because so many people who'd never watched horror films or slasher films before ended up going to cinema to see it, because it was the first one in such a long time. Whole new generation, like I said earlier. It kind of grew into something else, and if you didn't get all the references or you didn't understand some of the dark humor, then it was in a lot of parts just a film that was gonna make you jump out of your seat.
Yes, yeah, because that's kind of what I was feeling with it. It kind of made me think of like Hot Fuzz and Shaun of the Dead.
Yeah,
where those are so. I felt like that handled it. They handled this sort of the comedy meta aspect really well, where it was all so hyper realistic that it, you weren't confused as to kind of what worlds or whatnot you were watching and living in at that time. I mean, obviously the Scream franchise is a mega hit. I know I'm the odd man out because it's 20 odd years later and it's still going with 10 movies later or whatever. I don't know.
I think it's 6 movies and a TV series.
They're doing a TV show.
The TV series. Hang on, let me get my IMDb. There is a TV series.
Holy crap!
In fact, that's finished now. 2015 to 2019. Scream the TV series, starring Willa Fitzgerald, Bex Taylor Klaus, John Carner. I have to confess, I don't know.
I don't know any of these people. I do find this comment funny from Shane Ford in the chat. He says, not to sound jaded, but Scream is for basic horror fans. People who have a background knowledge of horror so they understand the references, but not too much to know it could be much better than it is. I think I kind of agree with that. I did roll my eyes at the Freddy Krueger reference.
You know that was Wes, don't you? You know that was Wes Craven.
Yeah. I just, when it happened, it was like, hey Fred, and I was like, oh God. you might as well just had him like actual Freddy Krueger there. Like, come on, guys, what are you talking about? But then Shane Ford says, it's as you know, it's a good gateway, but that's exactly what it was for you, isn't it? It was your gateway into horror. So there we go. Casey says, did you see the Wes Craven double cameo? Oh, double cameo.
Oh, okay. I obviously know the Fred one, but what's the other one? I'm gonna need to.
Know it. I don't know. You have to tell us. Tell us, Casey. Tell us.
Yeah, Casey, let us know.
6 movies and a TV show. It's the opposite of Community. That's hilarious. Because the joke of Community. You know the show Community? With,
I don't know it.
It's a U.S. comedy about people in community college, and the running gag was they want 6 seasons and a movie. They got to 5 seasons. It got canceled. Got picked up by Yahoo. It was when Yahoo tried to enter the streaming world. They got 1 season out of that and then canceled again. But I think they are actually doing their movie now. So it's the inverse of that, which is quite funny. So Phil made a comment earlier in the chat that I had in my notes as well. I did, what was sort of interesting was I did feel like there was some sort of right-wing commentary going on throughout the film. And this might be because I grew up in Midwest America, very conservative, very right-winged. Because part of what's his Fonzie, Harry Winkler. You know, he's the principal of the school, and he's you know, right before he's killed, he's got 2 kids in the office, and he's saying, you know, oh, you know, I should kill you myself. Oh, you're also, all these kids are so, you know, being corrupted by, you know, films and da 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 da. Which again I thought was quite interesting, because there did seem to be an underlining commentary about violent movies, violent video games, and the cause it was having on people. And I sort of thought maybe they were going to push that with Stu, because Stu was just absolutely insane. And I don't understand his motive to join in any of this. Even if the commentary was to be subverted and be like, no, he's just nuts. It has nothing to do with the games or the movies that he's watching. Yeah. So it was interesting, but I'm not sure. I think because that balance between seriousness and absurdity wasn't quite struck. Even that commentary, which was interesting, didn't quite land. Yeah,
you could say they perhaps didn't look at it closely enough. I think they could have probably done it in a slightly better way, but bearing in mind that Wes Craven was the director of Last House on the Left, which was a banned film because of the violence, and arguably the violence in that is far worse than anything that you see in Scream, and it's a more serious film as well. I think it was probably partly on him to say, look, you can say this as much as you want, but I disagree with it, and I've made all these films and nothing's really happened in response to them. Nobody's blamed the movies, so I'm just going to make this movie, which is more it is violent. Obviously it's violent, but there's a lot more gore to it. Can't take it too seriously, if you know what I mean.
I mean, it's like when Drew Barrymore's boyfriend is killed, like that's graphic. That's graphic as hell. And it's even like you can kind of think of, like, you know, compare it to like maybe a Quentin Tarantino movie where there is insane violence, but everything is so hyper that it doesn't feel real because the nature of the film. And I I know people love Scream, but I was feeling the whole time like you need to either dial it back and be more serious, or push the absurdity just a little bit further, so that I can kind of roll with it. One nitpick I have to mention is the cell phones. Is the cell phone?
Yeah.
The cell phone comment. I was like, oh my god, it's so funny to me because it literally was. It felt like it was written by someone. It was written at a time where cell phones were up and coming.
Yeah,
really, people were able to get them more readily and things like that. But the fact that they were like, we're gonna check all the cell phones in the area, and then we're gonna cross-reference all those calls. It's gonna take a long time, and I was like, just check the call log on the phone.
Yeah.
Why is no one picking up the phone to see what the last number that they dialed was, or just go get the phone bill? Because you can't just go and check everybody's phone. I'm pretty sure that was not legal. There was no NSA back then to do that.
Even if the NSA can do it now, it's still not legal. They still can't use it in a court of law.
Yeah, I was like, wait a minute, that doesn't compute, guys. That doesn't compute. But, yeah. So anyway, but yeah, I found that that was really funny. The other thing was the dad. The dad was a problem for me.
All throughout for me, like all three films, the dad was a problem for me.
It's like, did you okay, we called the hotel. He's not there. Okay, did you go to the airport? Is his car at the airport? I don't know. They didn't go. Did you go to the airport to see if he got on the plane? No. What are you guys doing?
They just left him. But I suppose he was supposed to be a red herring, wasn't he? That it was him. He lost his mind on the anniversary of his wife's murder.
Yes.
But then again, why would he then go after his daughter after he'd lost his wife?
Yes. Yes.
That doesn't make any sense.
But the better red herring would be he didn't get on the plane.
Yes.
So if they were like, went to the airport, and I was like, hey, did passenger 452 get on? And they're like, no, he never got on, and his car's never there. Then you're like, oh god, it could be the dad.
Yeah.
There you go. I'm fixing your movie, Scream. 20 years later.
But then also in Scream 2 and 3, where the hell was he? Why was he not protecting his daughter? Why was he not telling her to come home or get protection? Or do you know what I mean? The dad was a problem for me through the whole trilogy.
The thing that cracked me up about 3, we're gonna skip. We'll skip ahead just briefly to 3.
There's a lot that cracked me up about 3, if I'm honest.
Yeah, 3 was, I struggled. Once I understood what was happening with Scream, I was like, I'm not loving it, but I'm getting it, and it's very 90s schlock, goofy horror. But what was so weird about 3 is the movie begins with Sydney, like, she's got her like gates locked and her house all locked up, and and then at the end of the movie, where she's been when someone has tried to kill her for the 3rd time, at the end of the movie, when after Dewey proposes to Monica, Gale Weathers, and they see Sydney running with the dog, and he's like, she's doing much better now. And then there's that scene with her like leaving the door open as if she's like cured from all the horror, and I'm like, it's all gotta happen again. Like, she would be like, she should have been like Linda Hamilton in Terminator. She's Sarah Connor. She should have been Sarah Connoring it and been like, gun to the teeth. Because I was she's not leaving that door open.
You wouldn't ever recover from it, would you? You'd be even more likely to lock your doors now. Because let's face it, we've had 3 films with more than 3 killers.
Yeah,
5 killers. 5 killers.
Yeah, 5, yeah.
And they've each had a different reason, but they've all been linked. And now you're telling me that she doesn't entertain the possibility there could be a 6th? I just don't believe it.
I don't either. That was funny to me. Okay. Because I want to talk about some of the others. So should we round off what our final thoughts are on the first Scream? Is there anything else? Any other scenes? Like, do you have like a favorite? This is gonna sound, favorite like kill or something that you're dying to talk about with Scream 1 that we haven't yet?
No, not that I can think of. The only thing, so Tatum's death is always one that in the garage.
Oh yes, Rose McGowan, yes, and the cat flap.
Yeah. So for one thing, why are you in a garage by yourself when there's a killer on the loose? Because I sure as hell wouldn't have been in there. And then,
No.
but I did love the fact she was just like, no, you're not real, you're faking it, and you're being an idiot, and all the rest of it. I really liked that bit. And then, but yeah, the cat flap killing was let's call it interesting.
It was interesting. That one, it cracked me up. It was very sort of like, to some degree, there was like a bit of like fetishizing going on, starting first with her at the fridge, bent over, getting the booze, and then and then she's bondage, she's trapped in the cat flap, and is her big old tits are in the camera's face, like the whole. I'm just like, and I'm like, oh my god. I was like, it was leaning into it.
In her underwear, in her matching underwear, running away.
It's true.
Because let's face it, that could have happened.
It's true. And then then her neck is snapped by the garage door, and I'm like, I don't think people like. Again, it's like, if the movie is a little bit more hyper, I could have bought it, but because I'm like, a garage door it'll sense, the sensors will go and it'll come back down.
And the motor as well. The motor is not going to be powerful enough to lift even someone of Rose McGowan's size off the floor.
No.
Now, I mean, don't get me wrong. I am fully picking holes as much as you are in Scream. That does not prevent me from saying I still love them.
Yes. I think that's the thing. It's as the further away I get from it, it's like, okay, I need to distance myself from the idea that it's not the most sharpest written thriller, mystery, horror movie out there. It's not without its entertainment value, that's for sure. But I do think the entertainment value waned significantly in 3.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you.
Yeah. And I think I enjoyed 2 more than 1. I think I enjoyed 2 more than 1. So okay, should we chat 2?
Let's go 2.
So 1, it's weird that this movie came out the next year. They moved quick on that. But what's the thing? It's the strangest thing is how different everybody looks.
Mm-hmm.
Like Randy looks like he's grown 2 feet, and he's like really slim. It's weird. Sydney also looks older and different, and as is Dewey, and Monica looks about the same. But
that woman doesn't change.
No. Well, she looks quite different now, but that's different. She has her own regrets to deal with. So all I can say about that. So this is where I got I got a very sort of Sharknado vibe from the opening of 2. Because you had Jada Pinkett, Pickett in there. Can't remember the other guy's name, but then you also had Sarah Michelle Gellar and various other famous or up and coming actors at the time. Mm-hmm. And I feel like this was like, by the time 2 was coming around, they were just, everyone was like probably just wanting to be in this goofy.
Everyone wanted to be in.
Yeah, horror franchise sort of deal. Because I mean, loads of people like Jerry O'Connell is in it, Heather Graham is in it, Tori Spelling's in it, Timmy Oliphant's in it, David Warner, like so many quite impressive actors are in this movie. And I was like, and because I guess it was like, what, 1 came out and it was a hit, and while it was still in cinemas, they were like, because I think they had a script or an outline for 2 already. When 1 was put into production, so they were able to move on it quite quickly. But I'm also, the other thing that's also quite interesting, like comparing it to today. Like, could you imagine a movie coming out today? Oh yes, Luke Wilson is also in it. Sorry, forgot. Luke Wilson is also there. Could you imagine like a movie today, like a new horror film coming out, and it being such a hit that by the next summer there's a sequel?
No, it just wouldn't happen, would it?
No.
I mean,
I miss it.
CGI it as well. They'd want to do so much CGI to it.
Yes.
And green screen and all that stuff. I think it would just ruin it, actually. I mean, I'm not such a fan of all the later gory horror films, you know, like Saw and all those kind of things, because they're just like,
Yeah, no,
they're not the same. I sound
yeah,
really old now, but they're not. They're not the
no,
same.
no. I don't know. I can't think of. Again, I'm not a massive horror fan, but I'm trying to think of like the last time there was. I guess Saw might be the last time there was like an iconic, scary-looking horror figure, because I guess the puppet thing is kind of scary.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I think so.
But I'm like, other than that, like, I mean, it's like, we're still Jason, we're still Freddy, we're still, those are still the main. I mean, Ghostface is still going. Um, so I guess it's hard to come up with the next iconic horror monster, but yeah. Okay, so number two, the opening again was a bit nuts, and I guess having seen one, I kind of my expectations were managed a little bit more, I think, but what was weird to me, I want your thoughts on this. What was weird to me was, there all these people are going to see the first film. It's number one in a series, I guess,
Yeah,
possibly, and the audience is dressed up like Ghostface.
yeah.
And I'm like, this is like a Jeffrey Dahmer movie coming out, and everyone going dressed up as Jeffrey Dahmer, or going dressed up as the Zodiac Killer, or Jack the Ripper.
Hmm.
And it really kind of like, the meta-ness, I was uncomfortable with it. What was your thoughts when you saw that weirdo scene, or did it click as much?
Well, again, the first time I watched it was 20 odd years ago. So
Yeah,
I think we weren't as, certainly not as a teenager. Um, I was probably 16, 17 when I saw it.
yeah,
I certainly wasn't as aware of being conscious of things like that. I'm rambling a little bit. So,
yeah,
today
yeah,
I would look at it and go, oh my God, that is so inappropriate,
yeah.
Um, how can we celebrate the fact that this guy killed a load of people?
Right, a
But
year ago.
yeah, a year ago. But back then, as a teenager, as not being as aware of other communities, and also just not thinking about these things as much. You're
Yeah,
17-year-old, you're so self-absorbed. All that matters is you and your friends.
yeah,
But yeah, I mean, now it just wouldn't happen. People
yeah,
wouldn't accept it.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, I get where you're coming from. It's weird.
It really was. It really
But
was. It took the meta-ness to, I would say, just absolute absurd levels. Like, the guy getting killed in the toilet,
toilet.
Jada getting killed in the screening, and everyone thinking it was a publicity stunt. But
Yeah.
then, so I say all this, and then I try and like, but then when I think back about what I was saying about the first movie, this movie is continuing that commentary, of this hyper right wing fear of what horror movies and killings are doing to the younger generation. And when I like see the scene, I'm like, this is ridiculous. But then when I step back and think about that kind of commentary that I do think they could have done better with, I'm like, that actually makes a little bit more sense, because there is the kind of the fetishizing or the fantasizing of the killers in pop culture, in media, all that kind of stuff. And that's clearly what has happened here, and it's just gone to an absurd level. Hence, everyone dressed up in there, dressed up like Ghostface. But that's the thing. It's like, it's that intro. I think the intros might be, even though the second one is weird and kind of uncomfortable, the intros of 1 and 2 might be, I think, the best, smartest bits.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. Actually, they're
Yeah.
definitely cleverer than the rest of the films, the rest of the
Yes.
parts of the films,
Yes.
for sure. But it's interesting that in the first film they appear to be almost taking the piss out of people blaming horror films for
Yes.
violence in real life. And then at the beginning of the second film, they literally have someone killing somebody whilst everybody else is dressed up like them. So they're literally saying this violence happened because of a horror film.
Yes.
It's just a weird, like, opposing sides of the same argument going on. I'm not really quite sure what he was going for there.
No. I think that was, I get just a little bit more focused. Maybe don't rush the movie. Maybe don't do it the next year. Just spend a bit more time with the themes. Could have been helpful. Just quickly run through some of the comments in the chat. Shane Ford mentions that Scream 6 came out a year after 5. Yep, that's true. I'm assuming that was planned though, whereas it was not planned.
Yeah, no, the Scream 1 and Scream 2 thing was definitely not planned, not a year apart. That was like, we've made loads of money for Scream 1, let's get on with Scream 2.
Yep. Psycho in the chat with whoever you are, Psycho, I love your comments because they never have to do with what we're talking about, and they make me laugh, and I love it. We have great news for Narnia. Getting Greta Gerwig is confirmed to direct the first 2 movies. She has a deal with Netflix to direct the first 2 films of Narnia. Yep, that's true. Good for her. It will be a topic when the films come out.
Love
Frank, I want my TV now says this is referring to when I was saying, people like don't dress up as Jeffrey Dahmer and go to a Jeffrey Dahmer movie, and then he says people ate that movie up.
Yeah, they loved the movie.
No pun intended.
They loved the movie, but they didn't dress up as Jeffrey Dahmer and go to the cinema. Yes. I think is the point.
Yes. It's also is a TV show, but he mentions that as well.
Yeah.
But Shane Ford says that people used to dress up as Hitler at Halloween parties. They 100% do this in a Scream. I mean, maybe, possibly, but not to that extent. Like, you get one nut job who's going to go to a party dressed like a Nazi, and they're like, you got one idiot, not an entire cinema doing that. I think that was taking it so over the top. But then, like I was saying, the commentary that I think they were trying to get at was that we're trying to blame entertainment on on the violence that's out there. Because I remember being in the 90s. I remember being a kid. Violence was the big fear. Like, I wasn't allowed to play certain video games. I wasn't allowed to watch certain shows or cartoons because of violence. Oh, there's all this fighting, blah 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 blah. And I'm just, and obviously I watched it all. I found ways of watching it. Even my parents told me no. I'd go to a friend's house or whatever, and I'd find my way. Also, these things were on TV all the time.
Yeah. And nobody really worried about the cartoons, though, right? Tom and Jerry, Wile E. Coyote. They were just as violent, maybe not as bloody or as gory, but they were violent, and nobody stopped us from watching them.
They were violent and mildly racist at times.
Well, yes, there was that, yes.
But yeah,
and
moving on. What did you think of the classroom scene, the classroom discussion?
Again, when I watched that, I spent most of my time doing a who's who of the actors that are in that scene.
Yeah.
Because Joshua Jackson's in that scene as well. From what was it? Was he in Dawson's Creek?
Yes, that was it.
Yeah, and Sarah Michelle Gellar's in it, and but I quite enjoyed the discussion around sequels, because we all say, anybody who's a film buff will say sequels are never as good, but sometimes they are. So I did quite enjoy hearing the views on which ones are good and which ones are terrible.
What was weird to me, because even for back then, what was weird for that discussion was they were like so down on sequels. I'm like, wait a minute. Even by the mid 90s, you are a sequel, so you're being meta on that. So you're trying to say this one won't be as good, but I think it is actually better. But I was also like by the mid 90s, there were definitely better sequels out there. I mean, they mentioned the Godfather, and what was interesting though is they got this wrong, in my opinion. It was what's the guy's name?
Mickey?
Yes, Mickey. Mickey says to Randy, Empire Strikes. It suggests Empire Strikes Back.
Mm-hmm.
And then Randy goes, oh, but no, that was part of a trilogy and was planned. I was like, no, it wasn't. No, it wasn't. You had Star Wars. and that was it. There was no episode 1, 2, it's 4, 5, and 6. That was added way later. That wasn't planned. And then when that was a success, then they're like, let's do a sequel. And then I think that's when they planned to do 2 and 3.
Right.
But they weren't planned out. Star Wars was never planned as a 9-film saga. Never.
Oh, interesting.
So,
I didn't know that.
Yeah. When they said, I was like, nope, I know my sci-fi. You're in my territory now, Scream.
Yeah, I wouldn't have had a clue, to be honest. So I
yeah. So that bit made me laugh. What do we got here? Okay, so Casey says, when are we going to talk about Debbie Salt?
We're getting there.
I mean, yeah, we're getting there. We're getting there. Yeah, so I gotta be honest, I was shocked that they killed Randy. Of all the people, I was surprised by that. Were you?
Yes, but it also makes sense in the rules of a sequel. Someone from the core group had to die in that film.
Yes.
So when you think about it, it couldn't be Sydney, obviously.
Yes.
And actually, it couldn't be Gail or Dewey either.
But why not?
Well,
they're so useless.
That's true. But I don't know. They just made sense as a couple. They don't make sense as characters, like individual characters. And even though they were completely different, and I do not know what on earth made them attracted to one another, it still kind of worked.
Yes.
In a weird way.
Yeah.
I can't even begin to explain it. Now, whether it was luck or judgment, I would not like to say, but it worked. So you couldn't kill them.
I wonder if it, because they in real life, they got married. And I think by the second film, they might have been married.
I'm not sure, but maybe.
Because I can't remember I don't remember when her name changes on the posters, but it might be by the second movie that her name changes to Courtney Cox Arquette. And it made me wonder if the reason I was sort of buying a hint of romance is because they were actually fancying each other. It's a bit like do you ever see the Amazing Spider-Man movies with Andrew Garfield and Emma Stone? They're not worth it. They're not worth watching. But their relationship was the only thing I really, really bought. But then it came out that they hooked up during the movie and then had like a several-year relationship. And I was like, that makes sense because I bought that they were, and I think that had to be their, yeah.
So chemistry off screen equals chemistry on screen. Yeah, that's entirely possible. You could just sense that electric spark between them, so it worked.
Yeah, I think so. James Benmore says Addams Family Values is better than the Addams Family.
I got to agree with that.
There you go.
Yeah, very much.
The stage scene was equally as good. We'll chat about the stage scene for sure. Shane Ford, Randy's death is the best kill sequence in the franchise. Well, that's a good comment. What do you think about that?
Well, from a cinematography point of view, I agree. As in the way it was edited and put together. Yeah, I thought it was very, very well done, actually. Is it the best? I'm not sure it's the best kill in the series. I'm just trying to think who that might be. But yeah, I agree. In terms of cinematography and the actual filming of it and the editing of it all together, yeah, I think you're probably right. It is the best kill sequence in the franchise.
What do you think about bringing in Cotton? What do you think of Cotton's character the whole time?
He unnerved me the entire time, just completely.
Yeah. Is he the best actor in the movie?
Good question. Yeah, maybe.
I think
he
so.
Just had this weird sort of passive aggressive kind of nervous tension thing going on. And
I'm a nice guy, but I might rip your head off.
Exactly. But yeah, he just completely unnerved me, especially in the library scene.
Yeah,
in the second movie, that one particularly, I was like, I'm not a small person. I'm 5'10", and I'm not, I'm not slight in the slightest. And I would have been scared. It was me, I would have been like, Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, I did like that scene.
yeah. I agree. That was a good one. Do you think that Sydney's two police guards were a red herring? A poor red herring, I would say, but a red herring.
Yeah, very much so, and in Scream 3 as well.
Yes, yeah. Is there that it was in the library scene. I was like, they're gonna try and like do something with them, and then I was glad that almost like the next scene or a couple scenes later, they both die, and I was like, oh, okay, cool. They're not the killer.
Unexpected deaths are my favorite, if I'm
Yeah,
honest. It's like
yeah,
some people you know are going to die. Like
yes,
you might not have known Randy was going to die, but you knew one of them was. They had
yeah,
to. But the ones who you don't see it coming are the ones that I particularly like Sydney's friend, her sorority sister.
yeah.
That
I
one
was,
was a really great tense scene as well, actually, in the car.
You know what? I agree. I like the tension in that scene. Sydney getting out of the car, then her friend having to get out of the car, and then like, don't go back. Why are you going back? Ridiculous, I thought. But then her death was that one was a good one. That was a that's the thing. It's like, there's these moments where the movies begin to sort of escalate and not escalate, elevate to a plane of like, oh, you're actually kind of cool now, and then you like undermine it with something just absurd, like Dewey, like him constantly almost dying and not dying is comedic, and I'm like, I don't understand why you're doing that with it. Like, is this and this is where it's like, is this meant to be a comedy or is it not? It works if it's a comedy and he's a comedy character, because that's clearly what he's portraying, but that's not what the movie is.
No.
And that's why it's why even in the sequel, I was like, I don't know why you're here. It's like even back in Scream 1, when he's like, oh, I'm just checking in on the party. Why are you checking in on a high school party?
Yeah, why would you do that?
Also, why is Gail Weathers, back to 1 for a minute, why is Gail Weathers so desperate to sneak into a high school party? What about her investigation has led her to think that Ghostface is a teen at this house? And why is she leaving a camera to record what they're doing?
Yeah. Absolutely. It's all a bit weird, really, isn't it?
Nonsense.
You're not supposed to look at it this closely, though.
This is it. You're not. You're really, really not. But I do wonder. It's like, maybe if you had like, if the film had paid a little bit more attention to some of these aspects, tried to make it like a little bit smarter, would the films be even more iconic?
Or are they iconic because they're not too smart?
What is Scream now? Is Scream now? I have not seen the new ones. I get the vibe. I get the vibe that they're meant to be a bit more serious. But someone in the chat who's seen them, let me know. I've not gone that far yet. But I get the vibe that it's trying to be more serious and less comedic.
I mean, have we seen? We talk about sequels being generally inferior to the original.
Yeah.
Have we ever seen a series of films where the 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th even are good?
Yes.
Watchable, I will give you, but good?
Yeah. Well, Mission Impossible is the only one that comes to mind that has nailed the sequels continuing to keep the level high. Yeah, other than that, I'm at the moment I'm struggling to think of another rival, of another franchise that has done that. But Mission Impossible is one that comes to mind. I don't know if this one has, but people still go and see it. But I guess it's kind of like the Transformers franchise. They just keep going, and people keep going to see them. But I don't know how good. I mean, I know how good they are. They're not good. But I also wondered, while watching Scream 2, while I was enjoying it, I was kind of wondering, was this really just a good one and done? Like the idea, because I want to springboard this into talking about the killers now. But because I think that's where the film starts to lose. I really, really, really lost me at the end. I got to be honest.
I I understand Debbie. I get that. Mother's revenge is, well, it's basic, isn't it? It's basic instinct. There you go. There's another one. Yeah. It's a natural, fundamental instinct. The Mickey thing, I guess she needed to have a sidekick, so you know, we make Mickey the sidekick because he's a
Yeah.
film student, and
Yeah. So we're talking about Mrs. Loomis. So the killer, the first killer that is revealed is Mickey, who is a friend and of Sydney's and of films and studying film, and she's studying theater for some reason. Would have thought she would have like gone into like policing or something, like criminal psychology or something. But yeah, she goes into theater. And then you got Mickey, and then then when the second killer is revealed, it's the reporter. It's the other reporter who keeps hounding Gail Weathers the whole time. Which then that reveal that she was Billy Loomis's mom. I just thought, like, it was bad enough in the first movie, and is it intentional that the motives are meant to be absurd?
I think the motives are, some of them anyway, are meant to be obscure. I think out of all the killers, Mrs. Loomis probably has the best motive. I mean, you
Yeah,
kill someone that somebody loves, then they might come after you, especially if they're slightly unhinged.
yeah.
So I think she probably has the best motive of them all. Mickey just wanted to be famous.
Yes.
Stewie was just, I think we can all agree, had a screw loose somewhere, had a bit of a psychotic break.
Yes.
And Billy's is probably, it's pretty weak. I mean, I get the wanting to be famous, even if killing people to be famous is a bit of a stretch, but kill the daughter of the woman who had an affair with your dad.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And yeah, the mum revenge was a reference to Pamela Voorhees. You're absolutely right. It was that.
I mean, that makes sense that it's a reference to that, but I'm just like, I was like, this is a bit of a stretch. And the other thing I kept thinking about was, like, again, back with Sydney, I'm like, she needs to just stop making friends.
Yeah. Stop making friends, stop falling in love, just isolate.
Yeah, go live on an island all by yourself. Because I get it. The other thing that was funny to me, and I get that it's all sort of, it's all crazy and hyper, but the thing, especially when we get to Scream 3, which I guess we can kind of talk a little bit about now, is even in 2, I was sort of like, I wrote in my notes, I was like, why is Sydney so important? She's kind of a damp squib. She's not an interesting person. She doesn't demonstrate anything of any sort of, she's not a fun character. There's nothing exciting about her. There's no umph, there's no pizzazz. There's nothing.
There's no danger to anybody either, is she? When you think about it. She's not actually done anything, even in the most obscure terms, other than kill Billy.
Yes.
She's not done anything to anybody, She's not, you can't think too hard about the ending.
Well, no, Frank mentions here that they rewrote the ending because of leaks. That's true. I remember that, reading that the ending for 2 was rewritten or changed because there were leaks as to who the killer was. But I'm still like, I don't think that's not a good enough reason to just have an absurd ending like that. I don't know.
I disagree that it's completely absurd. Mickey is, don't get me wrong. I mean, yeah, okay, yes. You needed a sidekick, but you could have thought of a better reason or a better motive for him. But no, I think I do. I think Billy's mum has the best motive: revenge for killing her son. What better motive?
But he was a killer. He was a killer.
Yeah, but clearly he got his psychosis from somebody, right?
That's true. I guess. Is it inherited? I guess it is. Yeah.
But I mean, we read a lot of crime books, right? You and I, we write crime books, and our main character always has, there's always a reason why people are going after them. There's always something that they've done that probably doesn't make them deserve what's happening to them, but they've done something. It's in fact, it's one of the things I make sure my characters have a past and so on.
Yes.
But Sydney doesn't have any of that.
No. And again, I always I'm comparing this constantly in my head to Hot Fuzz and Shaun of the Dead, because I think those are perfect examples of genre parodies that meshed all the references, all the tropes, but also offered some kind of originality and interesting characters and interesting, and was hyper enough for me to suspend my disbelief. Whereas Scream, it teeters because it's like it wants to be in the real world, but then it doesn't. But then it wants to be a comedy, but then it's not. It's bizarre. But I do think 2 is the best of the 3. I think I enjoyed that mostly. The absurdity of them going through this second spat of killings a year later, while they're also talking about the film based on the real events of this fictional film that from our world. Some of that was quite funny and I enjoyed. But I think in 3 they took it too far.
Yeah, I agree. 3 is you just have to find it funny. I don't think there's any, you can't enjoy it if you don't find it funny. You have to, you have to look at the overacting, especially of the actors who are pretending to be actors in Stab 3. The film within the film, which is weird because we never see Stab 2 anywhere. We go from Stab 1 in Scream 2 to Stab 3 in Scream 3.
Yes. But that makes sense because there was a good number of years difference. Scream 3 came out in 2000. And it feels like a 2000s movie. You know what I mean? It has that the Scream 1 and 2 were very much mid 90s, and there was a mid 90s kind of ick to both movies that I liked and sort of missed. There was that a bit of a grunginess, a bit of we're etching towards the millennia, and I liked certain aspects of the feel, but that was more of a nostalgia thing than anything to do with the movie. It's like but 3 just felt, from the very opening with Cotton, just felt so 2000s.
Definitely.
And I was shocked that they killed him off straight away. Somewhere in the chat, Frank mentions that they killed Cotton off too soon. And do you agree? Disagree?
Yeah, they needed to have an opening sequence like the first 2, which, as we've already discussed, are probably the 2 best sequences in the trilogy. But I think they missed it. I think they missed the mark with the Cotton one. I think it was too long. In the first 2, more or less the first 2, the killings happen quite quickly, or the fear or the tension happens quite quickly. I don't think it does in 3, because him being in the car and being removed, you lose tension as he tries to get home. And once he's home, it just never comes back. The tensions never comes back, because Ghostface is there almost straight away. I don't think it's great.
No, and it was funny to me, that opening bit where his girlfriend, Cotton's girlfriend, and comes out of the shower and then hears the music, and she's like, "Cotton, is that you?" Well, who the fuck else would it be?
You don't, do you? You don't shout, "Is that you?" If I'm at the shower and my husband comes home from work, I'm like, "Hi, honey, I'll be down in a minute."
Right?
You don't see you.
No.
Me.
Exactly. And then the other bit that was funny to me, this is a stupid nitpick, but still a nitpick, is when she goes walking towards she leaves the bedroom having just dried herself off, and her feet are like dripping with water. And I'm like, you were just drying off. We just saw you drop the towel. You're not this wet. God damn it.
Your feet dry from the bathroom to the bedroom anyway.
Exactly.
Your feet are dry by the time you get to the bedroom.
Exactly. And then so then I was quite surprised that they offed Cotton, and then when it got back to like another, like, I didn't mind the film trope, the film within a film in 2. I thought that worked. It was cheesy, but it was fun. I was like, yeah, that's cool. That's fine. Whatever. Worked mostly. But to do it again, I thought, and this is what I was getting back to, like, was this really a one and done horror, thing? Because it's like, well, the first two killings, the first two killers are just a couple of random guys. They don't really, they're not a Jason, they're not a Freddy, they're not really something that can come back. But then I guess the franchise has evolved so that Frank's comment in the chat distracted me. Oh god. It's evolved to the point where anyone can be Ghostface, and maybe the franchise would have done better, but this would have been way beyond what would have been acceptable in the 90s. Is that not really though? I mean, maybe the other problem was that we need to just stop following Sydney and all of these people, and that the next Ghostface is just someone else who can go buy this costume, you know, and take it that route where it's I don't think from what I remember, I don't think are all the Friday the 13th movies, are they like they don't follow the same like core people the whole time. It's like 30 of those films.
No, I think, is it the same killer though? I'm not sure.
Well, I think Jason is the same throughout, but it's like you could take the same concept of like the killer can be anyone, and it could just be inspiring the next wacko who is in another town in another state or another place, and ghost faces could just be cropping up all over the world, which I guess is kind of like I said, it's the impression I'm getting what they're doing with Ghostface by this point, and going on, kind of making it scary in that sense that it could be.
That would certainly make them scarier.
Yes.
I think.
Yeah. Because all of it linked back to Sydney is just ridiculous.
Yeah, it's too much now. It's definitely too much now. Although I don't think she's in 6, is she?
I don't know. I don't think she is. I don't know how I think Billy Loomis is in it, but I think he's in like a flashback.
Right. Okay.
I don't understand how he can be in it, because I saw him in the IMDb credits. So I'm assuming. I don't know what happened. Tell us in the chat what happened in 5. Does she die? Does she finally die? 30 years after 40 people trying to kill her as Ghostface, does Sydney finally die? I don't know. Frank says she's not in 6, and I was 100% okay with that. Well, yeah. It makes sense. What are people saying in the chat? There's conversations going back and forth between Frank and Shane about whether rewriting Screen 2 because of leaks was good or not. Frank is of the opinion that yes, it was good. Shane is of the opinion that they should have trusted their story regardless of the leaks, and just went with it. Maybe.
I think you can argue both sides quite easily.
Yeah, Shane mentions, but that's why Sydney sucks. The Scream world is so heightened, and everyone else is acting so over the top, and then Sydney barely emotes. That was always my problem with her. I'm like, why you're so serious, and other people, like Billy was serious in the first one, but her and Billy were the only two that I think were remotely serious.
Yeah,
like the principal was over the top. All of her friends were some level of over the top. I mean, Rose McGowan's character was just a caricature of hot girl who needs to die in horror movie, So yeah, it was weird. Okay, no, Biffer the Hobbit says Sydney doesn't die; she's still alive. Well, it finally ghost faces are leaving her alone. Then
picking on somebody else.
Jeez. But yeah, what did you think of the ending of I have very little to say about 3, because I found it, I was so bored. It was fun watching 1 and 2 because I was just like, oh my god, this is ridiculous. And then when I got to 3, I was like, well, the ridiculous fun wore off for me.
Yeah.
And it was just really hard to get through.
It was even more ridiculous. And if any of them are a parody, it's that one.
Yes.
I mean, it is hard. I can imagine it must be super hard to be an actor who has to act like they're an actor and then also act like the person they're supposed to be.
Yes, like a Gail Weathers lady.
Yeah, exactly.
Particularly.
Like that. Like, all of, because she's in it for the most, right?
Yeah.
But even so, there's no excuse for the cheesiness of that acting. And it was cheesy. It was super cheesy.
Yeah.
what I did like about Scream 3 was how Sydney forgot that she was on a set when she was running away from Ghostface. That was pretty. I liked it. I liked
Yeah.
that. I'm not gonna lie. I did like
Yeah.
it. I've forgotten what the other thing was now. My mind's gone blank.
So memorable.
So memorable. Ghostface versus Jason, who comes out on top? Interesting.
Who's
Wow.
Ghostface?
Yeah, which Ghostface?
You know, which one? Which one? Frank in the chat says, I still think Sydney is fine. There are definitely more boring final girls. That's my final thought. Well, okay, I'm interested. I think you might have mentioned in the chat, but who is a more boring final girl than Sydney? Yeah. I'm not saying this because I have an opinion. I'm saying this because I don't know horror well enough to be like, oh yeah, maybe this one. Blah, blah, blah.
I'm interested here.
Yeah, I would like to know. I would like to know. He says he likes the costume room scene.
Oh no, that is good. That is good. I had to remind myself while I was watching this yesterday that happened. I knew it happened, but I couldn't remember where or which one it was.
Yeah.
And I thought I'm gonna jump off the seat in a minute if I don't think about this properly.
Yes. And then Psycho again. Love you, dude. I wish David Zaslav would convince Tolkien Estate to make the Silmarillion or War of Last Alliance movies. Lord of the Rings, buddy. Lord of the Rings. We'll talk Lord of the Rings one day. I don't want any more Lord of the Rings movies unless Peter Jackson's involved. That's my quick take on that. So have you watched the other? Where did you stop with Scream?
Do you know what? I was thinking about this. I know I definitely haven't watched 5 and 6, and I thought I'd watched 4. But when I looked at the synopsis of it, I was like, I don't think I've even watched 4. I think I kind of went Scream 3, and yeah, that's enough.
And done.
You talk about 1 and done. I think 2 and done. I think 1 and 2 were great.
Yeah.
3, did it need to happen because we needed to have, because we needed as an audience to understand that was enough. Because if it was 1 and 2, I know I would have been asking for a third if it hadn't come out. I would have been like, I need to see a third. I want to see a third. And then when I saw the third, I was like, nope, it's too much. It's fine.
But it was such a long time between 2 and 3. Like, would people still be asking? Like, I'm curious. I don't know why. I should have looked this up. But like, why did they wait so long? If 1 and 2 were such a hit, why wait 4 years or so for the next one?
Yeah. Well, it was 3.
Or was it 3? When
97.
Oh, yeah. It
was 3 years. I'm trying to remember if it came out before or after I left school. So first part of the year or second part of the year. And where I watched it.
I'm assuming it was a summer movie.
I think it probably was. So it would have been after I left school.
April 28, 2000. In the UK. That's the UK release.
Oh no, so it would have been before I left school. But then I went to a boarding school, so I wouldn't have been able to see it at the cinema. So I wouldn't have seen it until later. It was probably after the summer I saw it. Probably when it came out on video in Blockbuster. For those of you who remember Blockbuster.
Oh yeah, I remember Blockbuster. I remember my parents would never take me there. It's too expensive. We're not going. You can go get it from the library.
No, I love Friday night in Blockbuster, picking 1, maybe 2 videos if you were lucky.
I know. Nope, never went. At some point, there was some other video store that opened up because I think you had to be like a certain age to rent things. But then at one point, another video store opened up that had like no rules. It was great. So like as a teen, I could just, like a 16-year-old kid, I could just drive over there, rent a bunch of movies, and take them home. Didn't matter what they were rated. No one asked. I was like, this is great. Found a rent a rated R movie, I can do it.
Yeah.
But Shane 4 in the chat says, Luke, no. I don't know what he's referring to. Psycho, Teen Titans deserves live action movie or TV with HBO Max budget. It's unfair that it hasn't happened yet. I know very little about Teen Titans, but you know what? Sure, give them all the live action goodness that they need.
I don't know anything about it.
I think Robin's in it. That's all I really know. Batman's Robin is in it. Jennifer Love Hewitt as Julia James, and I Know What You Did Last Summer. I think I saw that, but I don't remember that movie at all.
I've seen it. Was she more boring than Sydney?
Shane, some questions shouldn't be asked. And Frank, again, I thought Helen Shivers in I Know What You Did Last Summer would have been more interesting. Final girl. Well, there we go. There we
It's been a
go.
while since I watched that one.
The question is, will you continue now that you've relived 1 to 3? Are you going to go and continue with 4, 5, and 6?
Do you know what? I probably will, just to see what it's like.
Yeah.
And also to see what 6 does without Neve Campbell in it.
Yes, because I think there are other. I think there's other returning cast members for 6.
I think
Courtney Cox is there.
Courtney Cox is in it. Yeah.
Wait. Let me go to IMDb. I was using Google, and I probably shouldn't. Yeah. So yeah, Courtney Cox is there. I'm interested as to find out how and why Billy Loomis is back. But that to me, knowing that Billy Loomis is in it, already makes me roll my eyes, because I'm like, wait, this is Scream 6, and we're still dealing with these fucking Loomises. Move on from the Loomises.
Looking to see if there's anybody else I recognize in there,
or is it Lumai? Is what's his face not in it? Is Dewey?
No, I can't see a Dewey.
So it's just Courtney Cox is just riding this train. I mean, what has Courtney Cox got going on? That's mean to say. I'm sorry, but
she hasn't really done anything since, has she?
Yeah. I mean, she's got all that Friends money. She doesn't need to.
Yeah.
Shane Ford says Scream 3 was delayed because of Columbine. It's interesting, but Columbine happened in 1999, didn't it? Because it couldn't have been delayed by. Yeah, that was April 20th, 1999. So that's how quick I am on my checking my facts. So it couldn't have been delayed by that much. It could have been delayed by more than maybe it was done in 1999 and they postponed it a year.
But delayed by a year by the looks of it.
Okay,
it was 2000, wasn't it?
Okay, so it would have come out quicker than. Okay, all right. That makes some sense. And Frank says the main girl is the daughter of Loomis. What?
Oh, in Scream 6?
Must be.
Is that a spoiler?
Probably.
And who was her mom?
Yeah. What?
I have questions.
I know. Allison says Scream 6 has a brilliant opening. The kills are gruesome.
Allison, you're going to have to tell me all about that next time I see you.
There you go. Finally, Psycho's on topic. Finally. Courtney Cox
Psycho.
Courtney Cox sucks, he says. I've never cared for her in Scream or Ace Ventura. I forgot she was in Ace Ventura. That's right. She is. I really like. She's perfect as Monica, and that is the perfect role for her. I love it. And Frank says, "Oh Lord, guys, we all need to watch 4, 5, and 6." I will say there is a part of me, having watched these first 3, having had this discussion, having listened to all this love for Scream in the chat, that I'm like, I know I'm never going to love this franchise, but there is a curiosity now that I'm like, should I waste 6 hours of my life? Assuming that these films are all 2 hours. If they go nuts and they're like more than 2 hours each, I might have to draw the line. I might have to draw the line. But yeah, final thoughts on Scream.
For me, do you know what? It's been a really long time since I watched them.
Yeah.
In fact, as Luke will tell you, I struggled to think of a topic because all I do is read books. All I do is read books.
And then I talked about books. I would have talked about books.
You know, I talk about books a lot. So I then remembered, because it's been a while, how much I loved horror films as a teenager, and particularly the Scream films. So I thought, right, let's rewatch the Scream films and let's chat about them, especially as they reference so many other films and there's so many nods or Easter eggs, as apparently they're called online. Easter eggs. And you know what?
They were back. Go on.
I would say I really enjoyed revisiting it, actually.
Yes. I think the Scream movies, like this was back when Easter eggs were actual Easter eggs.
Right.
because nowadays there's some references that were very on the nose in the Scream movies, but there are definitely references that I don't know and I won't know unless I were, to deep dive into certain things.
Sure.
Whereas nowadays the references aren't just there in the background or subtly done. It's like, we're going to throw it in your face. It's like, because I have to mention every episode. I have not mentioned Smallville, but I'm just going to say Smallville. But Star Trek, the new Star Trek stuff, like they're like, Khan. You remember Khan? Khan. And it's like, Khan. Oh God, move on from Khan. Like there's one character in the Strange New World show who is a descendant of Khan on the Enterprise, which is absolutely ridiculous. But she always says her full name. She's always like, my name is Laan Noonien Singh. And then everyone's like, oh. It's like she's basically like, the Noonien Singh is the new for Star Trek is like the equivalent of Hitler. So like her saying that is like, okay. Yeah, and it's just like, but that's not what it was like originally. They're just like, they need to shove Easter, like that drives me nuts. Anyway, Frank in the chat says we should do a watch along for Scream 6. I'll do it. Why not? Well, I'll do it. Psycho, I really hope we get a trilogy of I Know What They Did Last Summer with Jennifer Love Hewitt. I can't imagine anyone else in the role of Juliet. Sure. Allison, for me personally, just stay with Scream 1 and 2. Yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking. I'll do 6 just to watch along with Frank, but I don't know if I will. I'm curious, but I don't know if I'm curious enough. They're working on a new one. I know. They're already doing that. So there we go. Oh, cool. So I guess that kind of wraps up a Scream retrospective. Any other last minute thoughts? Or I think I've kind of gone through everything that I had to say about Scream so far.
Well, there is actually, I just remembered, I've just had a quick look at my notes. In Scream 2, there is a really famous uncredited actor. And it's Selma Blair.
Oh.
So when Cece, Sarah Michelle Gellar, is on the phone in the sorority house, the voice on the other end of the phone is Selma Blair.
Oh, wow. No, I did not know that. I didn't know that. I didn't pay attention to that.
I found it when I was looking up other stuff online earlier.
Yeah. So for those who don't know, as I mentioned at the beginning of the episode, Heather is a crime writer. She's written 3 crime books, Open Your Eyes, The Flight, and The Boat Trip. There is a link in the description to Amazon where you can go check out her books and buy them. So go to Amazon and buy books. That would be nice. Authors like it when their books are bought. And Heather, where can people find you on social media so they can follow you and talk to you about Scream?
So I'm on Twitter as Heather J Fitt and Instagram as the same actually, and I'm on Facebook as Heather J Fitt Author.
There we go. And maybe from tomorrow you'll be on Threads.
Yeah, well, I'm going to take a look at that for sure.
Yes.
And see what's going on over there, because it sounds like people are quite excited about that.
Yeah, there's that in Blue Sky. Are you still getting hit with the exceeded limit stuff?
Well, with Blue Sky?
No, with Twitter, the exceeded limit.
No, I haven't actually. I did over the weekend, and I didn't really know what was going on. I figured it was a glitch or something. But by the time I realized what was going on, the exceeded limits had gone up to like 1,000 for unregistered.
Verified. Oh, have they changed it?
Yeah, they changed. So it was 600.
Yes.
Then 800 and then 1,000. So by the time I realized what was going on, it was 1,000 anyway. So I wasn't too fussed about it.
That's why I haven't seen it then, because I got it the first couple of days, but then I haven't had it, and I was like, are they just like, do they take it away secretly? I didn't realize that they raised the limit.
Yeah, they raised the limit, but I don't think it's like a daily thing. I think it's a session thing. So if you come out of the app and go back into it, I think it resets it. I mean, I'm on Twitter a lot. I do a lot of scrolling on Twitter.
Same, me too. It's ridiculous.
So it's like, I must have hit 1,000 views in one day, even if it was in different sessions. So
exactly,
either that, or because there were temporary limits, they've now just been lifted. I don't know.
Yeah, who knows? It's absolute shit show. But if we move to other places, we'll let people know.
Yes, absolutely.
Frank in the chat says, talk about Dial of Destiny. No, I've done that enough. It's it's an adequate movie. It's fine. Crystal Skull is better. That's a new Indiana Jones movie, by the way. Dial of Destiny, if you've not seen that, Heather. The Flash movie made 100.
I've seen you talk about it a lot.
Yeah, I've been vocal. What else is going on? Psycho says Godfather doesn't need a reboot. I agree.
True.
There's new Godfather in the works, apparently. I don't know. Allison says I can highly recommend Heather's book. So there you go.
Oh, thanks, Allison. I'll pay you later.
Psycho says X Factor is so fake. Rigged. Psycho, man, dude, you're great. You're great. Don't ever not come to a show. I love all the random stuff you say. It makes me happy. Like X Factor. Love it. Love it. Phil, Dial of Destiny. And Frank says, I've stopped scrolling Twitter. I only tweet now. Yeah, I don't scroll as much as what I used to because I'm like, well, this limit thing is ridiculous. You know, I guess I'll just like message people if I want to talk to them. You know, I scroll a little bit, but really, really not very much. Or I'll go directly to someone's.
Yeah, it goes directly to their feed.
Yeah, sort of. It's so annoying. It's so annoying. But yeah, we'll see how we go. But anyway, Heather, this was a ton of fun. I love talking Scream with you. I really enjoyed this.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, we'll pick another topic and have you come back in the future.
That would be great.
Sure.
Thank you.
Everyone, I will be on Sunday night, 7:30 British summertime. I will be on I Want My TV Now's channel. We're talking Batman 89 and Batman Returns. It's a Keaton love fest, and I'm going to talk about why I love Batman Returns so much, because I love that movie. It's so good, and it's 2 p.m. Eastern time because Frank is in America, and I'm not. So yeah, go follow I Want My TV Now. That would be great. Like this video if you're not already subscribed. Subscribe to my channel because that's also helpful. And I'll see you. If not on Frank's show, I'll be back next week. I don't remember who's on my show. I got a kid. I can't think straight. I'm not as well organized as I should be tonight, but it's all good. I'll be back next week with another guest. And maybe I'm seeing Mission Impossible on Monday. And I'm like, should I try and do a show between Monday and Tuesday? But I don't know if my wife will let me. Because if I got one Sunday night and I got one Wednesday night, will she let me do one more? I don't know. I'm already being given the chance to go see the movie. While she watches our lovely little kid. But yeah. Anyway, I'll see you all when I see you. Heather, this was good fun.
Thank you very much. And thank you to everyone who's watching and commenting and stuff. That was really good fun.